Do you think there is a recipe for everyone to be in shape?
People would hope that there's a recipe, but I know that just from life experience, so much is always thrown out at us. And I think people try every single thing in hopes and promises of a better body, slimming down, healthier, more energy. But I don't know, is there one size fits all?
It's always strange to me that we already have the same body.
We all have the same body?
Yeah. Meaning that we are all humans, we belong to the same species.
Right.
We have some very marginal differences.
Some more marginal than others, I would think. I mean, we're not all the same size or the height.
But it's really marginal in the grand scheme of things. If you compare a human with an insect, there's a big difference, right?
Right.
When you compare humans between themselves, we are very, very close.
Okay, that's encouraging.
So why would there not be like a universal principle that if we were to apply those principles, I would not say have the ideal body, because probably we each have a body that has its own target.
Yeah.
But we would be respecting a kind of harmony that is embedded in the various possibilities of our species, right?
Right.
So I see many people running around like this jogging thing.
Going to the gym, lifting weights.
Yes. And it's like in everything on this planet, everything is distributed, or most things are distributed, according to a bell curve.
Right.
The normal curve. But if you really concentrate on the 90% of people who make an effort really to better their body, let's say, you see very little results.
Yeah, and it seems unfair because some seem to do nothing and just effortlessly have a nice body. So where's the justice in all this?
True, and these are probably outliers, and it's always this bell curve. Yeah, people on each extreme, people who do absolutely nothing, eat whatever, and they still have, apparently they are in good health.
Yeah.
But so many people are in such a good health, and suddenly at 55 they have a heart attack or they have a cancer, and people are very surprised. And we live in a world where people think that suddenly like lightning will strike. You are in perfect health. He was so in shape and he was so healthy, and suddenly he had this heart attack. What we know is that these things are building up. It was not right in probably the way of living.
So do you mean something was not right in their physical fitness or just overall lifestyle?
Yes.
Possibly the food and everything else too.
Yes, without excluding that there is a default in the heart,
yes,
from birth or whatever.
And not to mention if they've just recently taken any types of medication or shots or whatnot that made them die suddenly, which is happening quite a bit.
Yes, absolutely.
As well.
We know that in the US, the fourth cause of mortality after, heart disease, etc., it's prescribed medication.
Right. So that's the prescription side of things. The pharmaceutical side of things tends to get more and more lethal over time. So we have to be very vigilant on that front as well.
Yes, but what I want to say is that the external shape of the body, the appearance of healthiness, doesn't necessarily reflect the metabolic health of the person.
Yeah.
All right.
True. There are some very sort of slim-looking people that I know that are incredibly unhealthy. And maybe because they've been slim all their lives, they've just gotten a little bit more careless and they eat the wrong things and definitely don't work out and live a healthier lifestyle because they take for granted that they're already so-called look like they're in shape.
Yes. So if everyone has the same goal, is to be healthy, and probably preserving this health as long as possible. And in old age, I'm talking about 70, 80, 90, not be a burden to society or to family, and to keep a certain independence. And that's the goal.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure everybody wants to just remain independent till their dying day. Nobody wants to be a burden on anyone for any reason.
But in the West, most people, they spend their 20 last years burdened with disease.
Yeah.
When we talk about life expectancy, that can be set at 80, right? The life expectancy in good health in our countries, it's like 60, 65.
Goodness.
So
wow.
it really means that you spend the 15, 20 last years of your life just being overwhelmed by pain, arthritis.
So what we've
diabetes.
been doing decades before getting sick is we've been working towards getting sick. So we've just been careless. We haven't cared about what we put into our bodies. Or if we thought we were putting the right things into our bodies, we were misinformed about what really is good and what really isn't. And bang, 10 years, 20 years, 25 years later, you're sicker than anything. And you wonder, how did I get here?
Exactly. It's like you are living on credit and suddenly the bill comes.
Yeah.
Right. So in that, there is a very good news. It means that you own your health.
Right.
It is not something that suddenly becomes crazy and start to do crazy things and there's nothing you could do. And again, we're talking about the vast majority of cases, you're just paying the bill after a long process of accumulating toxins or malnutrition.
And people often hit panic mode and they tend to outsource their health. Once they realize, oh my God, this could be declining and I might be just going into a downward pit, they outsource their health to all the usual suspects, all the mainstream healthcare suspects. And maybe that's not the best place to look when you're trying to get your health back into your own hands.
It's true, we live in such an unnatural environment and so disconnected from our own bodies that we don't listen to the signals anymore. And we are bombarded with food that are just misleading us. We have signals of society. And when we eat this processed food, they put in this processed food additives, for example, that is just fooling the body.
Yeah.
Into believing that there is some nutrition in these things. So I like to look at nature. The only animals you will find in nature that are obese or sick metabolically, they are domestic animals,
right,
and ourselves as humans. Okay. So what are they doing that we are not doing anymore?
Yeah.
They are not outsourcing, as you say, their health. They know what to do. They know what to eat and what quantity. So the great message that has been out there for a long time from the doctors who are not specialized in nutrition is to, if you want to get healthy, you need to, and for people who are overweight, and this is a large problem, it's an epidemic of overweight people.
Yeah.
Right? And we know the consequences exactly with a virus that is not that dangerous for someone metabolically healthy, like COVID or the SARS-CoV-2, will really be bad for obese people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's an underlying condition that is weakening the whole body.
Right. So being overweight makes you so susceptible to so many health challenges.
Yes. And the advice that is commonly given is to eat less and move more, except that you cannot out-exercise a bad diet.
Okay.
Because the good news in some way is that 90% of your body shape literally is determined by what you eat.
Oh, okay.
And not at all by the amount of exercise that you do.
True. I mean, you just see that in real life. There's so many people in my life that just exercise to death and they're really not getting anywhere. And then there's those that are the bodybuilders who have a different type of body type altogether, but their food is different as well. So that makes you wonder what makes more of a difference, the food or the exercise.
Oh, the experience shows that the food is making the whole difference. Because the body, when you are eating, especially this very carbohydrate-loaded food, and I'm talking about grains, seeds, and everything which is plant-based, in fact, it's really at the end of the day when it can be extracted, degraded into glucose, right? And most of it, with a very few proteins that you can use, and seed oils. And all of this is very inflammatory to the body. And it's always a surprise to me that people would say and claim that inflammatory foods are the animal products or meat.
Yeah.
Because
where'd that come from? Why? Why do they say that?
I think it's a bit of propaganda.
But is it science-backed?
It is absolutely not science-backed.
Yeah.
Because you can measure, there's a measure that is commonly done in the blood. It's called the C-reactive protein. It's a protein that is released in your bloodstream when you are inflamed.
Yeah.
So if you want to test an experiment, you go a month and a half on a meat-only diet, you see the C-reactive protein going to the ground.
Yeah.
So inflammation is heavily reduced or even disappears and not measurable anymore. Whereas when you start reintroducing plants, it goes up again.
Okay.
So it is an objective measure.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how they can continue to have such claims,
Well, I think we did talk about this before about how the agricultural industry was the one that was putting out ads for, eating more fruits and vegetables and plant-based foods. So there's a conflict of interest there, obviously. So it's not an objective recommendation.
Mm.
And so I think we need to be very careful with who we get our information from and follow the money. Who's paying them and where did that information come from before we take it as gospel?
Absolutely. It was driven by industrial interests.
Mm-hmm.
And also by the lack of meat or animal products, but it is an inferior food for us.
Okay.
And, well, no harm in eating a bit of it when you are not susceptible to some, let's say, allergic reactions to some molecules that are in plants. Our bodies are equipped to deal with a small quantity of it. But if your diet is composed like the majority of the standard American diet or the common diet today, 70% of plant-based, we're already mostly plant-based everywhere. This is a total reversal of what should be, right?
Yeah.
When you can afford it. Now, the question is why not anyone or everyone can afford a meat-based diet, because you can make this available to the whole population of this world if you were to put ruminant animals everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And this would take 10 years, and it would actually just regenerate the soils that are getting desertified by intensive agriculture, So once you quit any inflammatory food, and I'm putting into this the toxins in plants, the body, when you are eating these toxins, natural toxins, I'm talking I'm not even talking about industrial pesticides, etc. The natural toxins in plants, the body to prevent further damage, from sugar that is too heavily in your blood, and from these toxins, it retains water and it retains fat too, to mitigate this toxicity. Storing the toxins it cannot deal with because your liver is overwhelmed, and you just have to store it somewhere to mitigate further inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So when you quit all these toxins, your body can breathe again and it de-inflames.
Okay.
In this case, it releases water first and fats that are in excess.
Oh, that's good news.
So maybe when people are cutting plants, you see tremendous results in weight loss.
I've seen that. And a friend of mine actually gave up all plant-based food. And she just resorted to carnivore. So she was just eating fatty meat, red meat, and cheese and milk and eggs. And in 3 days, I forgot what she said, how much, but it was a remarkably high amount of weight that she lost.
Yeah.
And she said, because she said she just was just too toxic and too inflamed.
Mm-hmm.
And she was over the moon. And now she's been at it for like a month. And she just swears by eating carnivore only.
Yeah, she's at the beginning of the process. Now, these first days is really the water release.
Yeah.
And you have liters and liters that are not necessary anymore. And then you will have this rebalancing between fat storage, where some toxins have been, and it will melt away. And now, let's say a reconstruction, because if we go into what we are designed to eat and getting rid of natural toxins in plant, your hormones, because there's a lot of things that are disturbing the hormone balance in your body.
Yeah.
In these toxins, so it frees the body to meet its weight goal and to be harmonious.
Right.
And so the fat will be kept where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And in women, it's around the hip, and the muscle mass will increase naturally to its natural state, even without much exercise, if at all.
So the key is harmony, and that harmony is what you feel. When your body is in harmony, you actually start feeling good. You love waking up in the mornings. You love the energy levels. Everything feels right.
Yeah. So when you go animal-based and you actually do not have a goal in terms of weight, because the weight, the scale, can be your worst enemy. Many people, after the first few weeks, releasing water, releasing the toxic fat, etc., they don't see their weight changing, their mass.
Right.
But it's because the fat can reduce and the muscle is being built. So the mass remains the same, but the body composition is totally different.
So the weigh scale is not a measure, and it's a very misleading measure.
Exactly.
Because if you stagnate, or you think you're stagnating, you're not losing any weight, that's probably not true.
No. The only measure really is how you feel and how you look in your body composition, you know? Because you can have exactly the same weight and being tremendously fat or very in shape, because muscle weighs more than fat.
Someone needs to come up with classes on how we can be in tune with our own bodies, so we don't outsource this stuff. I think the more we outsource, the more we're told what to do, the less we're really in control of what's going on, and we're probably not headed in the direction that we want to. So, I think we all need to learn how to be more in tune with our bodies. And that word harmony that you just said is so true. I mean, maybe we should learn how it feels to be in harmony when our bodies are completely aligned in the way they should be.
Yes, and I think the first step is to try a species-appropriate diet, which is to eat like all species on this planet. The diet our bodies are designed to work on, which is physiologically we have the same digestive system as the lions or the carnivorous animals based on acidity. So if we do that, these toxins will also, I see that, freeing our minds from a lot of brain fog. And when you see the results, I think I've never seen anyone who comes back to a mostly plant-based,
Yeah.
People for variety, they would go back to like 10% plants maybe.
I've never looked back. I've gone carnivore for months now. I've never looked back. I've never looked at a fruit and a vegetable in a longing way. It just is no longer a part of my system. And the desire is not there. It's really remarkable how we lose our inclination towards certain foods when we start eating foods that are actually nourishing us. Then we don't feel any lack. We don't feel any void. So there's no desire. There's no hunger for something.
No, because once we have, ingest is something that provides our body everything it needs in a balanced way, which is, for example, meat, then the body is just content with it.
Yeah.
And will not ask for more. And usually the cravings, the body is asking for more because it doesn't get what it needs.
Right. So coming back to the choice in food being superior than the choice in our exercise, right? You said it's more important to understand what we should be eating than to be exercising like a crazy person.
You cannot out-exercise a bad diet.
Okay. So how much should we exercise? Should we exercise and why should we exercise?
Yes. So I said 90% of your body composition is really related to what you eat.
Yeah.
And now coming to the exercise part, of course, exercise is not bad and probably is necessary because we are not meant to stay seated all day long.
Right.
We've always been active.
So is it natural exercise, like walking to the store to buy whatever you need and walking to the post office? Is it just making active choices in life, or is it actually going to the gym?
So there are two sides of this question. There is the exercise that is necessary to maintain your health, and walking is probably enough. Walking, because all of this is linked to body processes like digestion.
Right.
When you walk, peristaltism, which is the movement of the bowels, is stimulated. So being active is also important for your functions.
Yeah.
Now, ideally, I would say that replicating the movements of a farmer, of someone who lives a life that is not mechanized, is probably what we need. But there's no necessity to really go overboard. Because once again, I see people building muscle without any exercise, But if you want really to increase your muscle mass, and this is something that is very interesting. There's a whole field of medicine that is opening right now about, it's a muscle-centric medicine. We discovered that muscle is the largest organ in the body, and its function is not only allowing us to move, it's also the biggest endocrinial organ of the body. It produces a lot of hormones and things like this. So,
wait, it's larger than skin? Isn't skin the largest organ in the body?
all of your skin has muscles
Underlying.
and
Yeah.
you have muscles everywhere. So it's really the largest organ.
Remarkable.
And the function of the muscle in the in the metabolic health is just we are just starting to scratch the surface. But what we know for sure is that longevity is really related or associated to muscle mass, right? And it seems that the more muscle mass you keep as you age, and the healthier you are, basically.
Right.
Okay? So I'm not talking a muscle mass that is being built injecting crazy artificial hormones like the bodybuilders do, because now we have to differentiate. When people go into some sport discipline, like marathon, they want to be good at marathon.
Right.
Okay, so they have to dedicate training to be good at marathon,
right.
Running very long, etc. If you are a power lifter in competition, you need to master the movements of powerlifting, etc. There's a technique. Now, there's no question that you should train for the technique and to be the best in your field of expertise.
Right.
But your goal now is to win the marathon, is not to be the healthiest version of yourself.
Right.
So how do you get to the best version of yourself in terms of health, Well, in an urban environment, so we can walk, but now if we want to build muscle and not simply maintain the muscle, let's get something out of the way. I was saying that if you train for marathon, you should really stick to your goal is to win the marathon. But is it good for your health? Well, we know it's not, because when you go into these long jogs, you are sending, your body composition is determined mostly by your central nervous system that is based on the signals you receive from your body. And if you give constantly the signal that you need to run long, the central nervous system will take it as a message that it should work towards adapting your body to this new reality.
Okay.
So if you need to run long, and we see it physiologically, people who are training, more than 15, 20 minutes a day and running or an hour, or their body adapts to that.
Okay.
But in a bad way. Because when you run long, your cortisol level, it's an hormone of stress, is going up. And it has as a consequence to make you... So the body understands that since you want to run long, you need to be as light as possible.
Yeah.
And you need to keep as much fuel as possible. So how do you get lighter? Well, it will destroy your muscle where it's not needed. This is where you see people who are really look at the physique of a marathon runner and a sprinter. The marathon runner is very thin. He's almost like
right.
No real muscle mass,
because their muscles are only applied towards what they're doing on a daily basis.
Yes,
which
and
is
all
running.
the rest is vanishing.
Oh gosh!
And the bones are getting less dense to get lighter.
Is this common knowledge? Do people know this?
Not really.
As a study? How come? Why?
Because people don't read the literature.
But their doctors and their trainers should know. They're experts.
I mean, there is someone, and probably in another episode we can go through Dr. Jacquish, in my opinion, one of the foremost world leader in muscle building.
Okay.
And he wrote a book called Weightlifting is a Waste of Time, and so is, cardio.
Ah.
And he tells you that the population that is involved in muscle building and all this fitness exercise is probably the stupidest population on the planet.
Why?
Because they can't read. They can't read the scientific literature. They just don't understand it.
But is there a scientific literature around this?
Absolutely.
Then why are they told, by their doctors and by their trainers and by their nutritionists, exercise and train, and if you're going to win the marathon, you have to do this. Why aren't any of them warned that, with this excessive training, there are some serious drawbacks?
Yeah, because you see the people who have been engaged in these activities for a long time, they don't age well.
No,
their bodies are worn out.
I've seen that.
Yeah, and this is contraindicated. We have never in nature, in the past, in our evolution, been people who have been running for days or hours behind an animal.
Yeah,
if we are hunters, what we would do, we would use our minds to make traps and to catch animals that way.
Right.
we are not running behind a wounded buffalo for days.
Right.
It's not what we do. We collaborate and we make a trap.
Yeah.
Then we get the animal. Well, if you run long, then the message is get as light as possible and keep as much fuel on board as possible. And so keeping fuel, it means that not losing as much fat as you want.
Mm-hmm.
So basically you're going against your own result that you are looking for. And you are usually ending up being what is called skinny fat.
Yeah.
Which is no muscle, fat on the belly or etc.
Right.
And this is not at all what you are looking for.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
So now if you're asking me why this advice is out there, I return the question, why is the advice of eating fruits and vegetables good for you? Why is it out there? And repeat it consistently when there's absolutely nothing that is proving it on the contrary.
So all this information we get from the mainstream, which what I mean by that is our schools or our publications or our medical system, it's all so flawed and it's not well studied at all. So they're passing on this flawed information to us. And that's why so many people continue to get sick. I have some members in my family who really believe that eating fruits and vegetables is a better way. And they're the ones that are getting cancer. I mean, one who, is not well and has repeatedly had to deal with a tumor. And there's a few others that haven't done so well. So, the proof is in the pudding, but I guess the mind is just so, trained that to be told or shown something else would now just be so foreign to that mind that they will not accept it. And they won't associate their sickness with their lifestyle, with their so-called healthy lifestyle. So they won't associate that maybe they got terribly sick because they were eating so many fruits and vegetables, which they thought were healthy and good for them. So ordering the salads instead of the steak, in their mind was the better option.
Yes, it's very sad.
But they've been so misled.
Indeed.
And that's abuse. They've been abused by our system.
Yes, and again,
it's unfair.
The literature and the way muscle works, etc., is very clear. So if you want to build muscle and not simply maintain, so I would say that maintaining, you need to have a good diet, a diet that's appropriate. The body will meet its goal. You walk because you still need some activities. Nothing really more on top of it. But if you want really to increase your muscle mass, you need again to tell your central nervous system that you need more muscle. And before even doing that, if your diet is not appropriate and the signal is, given build muscle, you need the building blocks.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to eat enough protein in order to be able to build this muscle.
Which comes from our animal-based food.
Yes, and not plant proteins because they are much less bioavailable.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they are ingrained in toxins because the plant is trying to protect itself from its predators.
And celluloid is not digestible.
It's not.
The plant celluloid is not digestible. And that is what is surrounding the nutrients, the so-called nutrients that we think we're getting. But we're actually not getting them from the plants.
Yes. No animal can actually digest plants. Let's remember that only bacteria in fermentation can extract the full nutrition that is theoretically in the plants. We don't have this digestive system that allows a good fermentation.
Nobody knows this. I say this to pretty much everybody I know now, especially close family members, because I really want to bring this awareness. Nobody knows this. And it's a very tough pill to swallow once the information reaches you.
Yes, and there's something that is really disturbing also when we talk about protein is that the currently used methodology today to measure the protein content in food is totally flawed because it's grossly overestimating the content of protein in any food. On the labels, you read that, 100 grams of this thing, of this whatever contains like 20 grams of protein. This is overestimated because of the methodology, like 25 to 50% overestimated. So if you are using any of these applications, to control your food intake and try to calibrate, usually with the goal of protein intake being like 0.8 gram of protein per kilo, which is much lower than it should be, then you are missing your target by probably 30 to 40%. So we are all, if you follow I mean, the labels,
Yeah.
we are undernourished in terms of protein intake. We're deficient.
I never trusted the food labels. I'm sorry. I always saw them as a conflict of interest. Why would any food company put anything but good things on their food labels? And sometimes, they're quite clever because they come up with chemical names of bad things. And so you don't know what it is that's in there, but it's like a chemical name for like a really terrible sugar or something. And, they won't tell you that.
But I was very surprised to discover that even, something as straightforward as the protein content, it's not even some very marginal, toxin hidden somewhere. Is even the quantity of protein is derived from a methodology that was devised in 1943. Now we have better methodologies, but they don't want to switch to a better methodology because it would mean revising all the labels and making it apparent, all these food companies, that what they provide on the market is really deficient.
Yes.
No, we're very deficient in protein.
Exactly. So it's an inconvenience for them.
Yes, not even counting that even if you eat your, 1 gram of protein a day per kilo, if it's coming from plant proteins, it's much less bioavailable than the animal proteins. So
there's no point in eating it because you're not getting any of the nutrients out of it.
Well, it's inferior, for sure.
Yeah.
So now, if you want to hit a target, if you want to build muscle, you need to provide enough protein so that the body would say, okay, we have the resources. This is the first step. Mm-hmm. The second step is to give the signal, build more. But first, let's address the intake of protein. I think that 2 grams of protein per kilogram of lean body mass is really a minimum. Okay. So just to put things into context, if you take like 100 grams of fatty meat, it contains 50% of water first. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then remains, when you eat 100 grams, 50 grams is water. Okay. And 50 grams remaining is divided into 20% protein and 30% fat. Okay. So if your lean body mass, which is your body mass without the excess fat you may have. Mm-hmm. So for someone who is considered normal weight today, remove 20%. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then if your lean body mass is 60 kilo, you would need to ingest 120 grams of protein every day. Okay.
Okay.
To be able to build mass efficiently. It translates into 600 grams of red meat. Every day.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you're not building muscle, 1 gram of protein per kilo seems fine. But that still would mean 300 grams of
red meat.
Yeah.
Fatty red meat.
Fatty red meat.
Yes.
Not to be deficient.
Yes.
Not to be tapping into other muscles to feed the important muscles, etc.
And when we say fatty red meat, we mean at least 30% fat, correct?
Yeah.
Around 30% fat. Okay.
Yeah. So if you don't maintain at least 1 gram of protein per kilogram of lean body mass, you would be deficient in protein, mm-hmm. which means limiting, the normal muscle mass targeted by the body. So now, once you have the building blocks, if you want to build muscle, you need to send a strong signal to the central nervous system to recognize the need to build more muscle. So you must go into exercises that exhaust your muscle capability so that at one point, since you cannot, lift something anymore, then the muscle sends a signal. Well, we need more muscle in this place,
Okay.
And then the signal comes, build more.
Okay.
So if we really lift weights, we must lift until full exhaustion of the muscle. Technically, it's called muscle failure.
Right.
Right. So when you cannot move anymore the weight, mm-hmm, and
mm-hmm.
now the signal has a chance to go.
Yep. And that should apply to everything, right? So sit-ups, push-ups.
Weightlifting in particular.
Right. But when you do your push-ups, even with your arms, right? Yeah. You do it as far as you can. And then up into that last push-up, when you just can't push up anymore, you know that you've exhausted your potential. And now your body is signaled to increase that potential.
But it's true. But you really should go into heavy weights.
Okay.
Because it's really sending a stronger signal. If you want to build muscle more efficiently.
But isn't Jack Wish's thing, one of his things is that you do it against your own body weight through elastics?
I was going there, but I want really to make people understand how things work,
Yeah.
But because it's quite difficult to exhaust fully your muscles. So if we take an example of a power lift, which mm-hmm. you sit on your back, you're just on your back and you have a weighted bar on your chest, and then you pull up, right?
Okay.
And at the beginning of the movement, it's pretty difficult to lift, right? But when you are at mid-range, it gets easier, right? And when you're almost at the top, it's really almost you don't feel such a weight.
Right.
It's because at this range of motion, when you're almost at the top, Jacquish measured that, your muscles are probably 7 times stronger than at the beginning of the movement.
Okay.
So if you can lift 50 kilos, starting on your chest, and you lift up, it becomes easier and easier. Ideally, to really exhaust the whole muscle, you would be facing the necessity to have a weight that is increasing as much as you exercise, And so 50 kilos would translate into 300 kilos at the top. So these muscle fibers that handle the top are barely exhausted when you exercise with just 50 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a conundrum he thought about, and his solution is really to progressively increase the weight as you move. And you can do it in several ways. Either you have some people around you who load the bar as you move.
You're right. Changing the weights as you go.
Or some people who help you at the beginning and then... Or something he devised, and maybe we can talk about it in the next episode, is using elastic rubber bands.
Love it.
Because it means that, as the elastic or the rubber band is extended, it becomes more and more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do that, not only you exhaust all range of motion in terms of muscle, but you also prevent any injuries, because at the beginning of the movement, you really have to preserve your joints. And lifting too heavy at the beginning of the movement can lead to injuries. So I think he has a very good technical solution to building muscle more efficiently.